Hi there. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tinnitist TV. Today, I'm talking to Frank Turner. I caught up to the singer-songwriter on what turned out to be an eventful week in his life, for better and very possibly worse. On the upside, the veteran folk punk was enjoying himself while touring the US and Canada for his 10th studio album, Undefeated, and while putting the finishing touches on plans for his ambitious multi-night festival Lost Evenings, which was being held in Toronto for the very first time. On the downside, his wife Jessica Guise was about to announce that she plans to end their 10-year partnership over what she referred to as his actions on the road. So I guess maybe he was enjoying himself a little too much. Thankfully, because that unfortunate news didn't break until a couple of days after I caught up to him over Zoom before a show in Ohio, we didn't discuss it. But we did talk about Undefeated, politics, touring, what qualifies as a show in his books, and plenty more. Here's what he had to say.
Oh,
Hey, Mr. Turner, how are you doing today?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
I am good, sir. You can hear me?
I can. Can you hear me all right?
You are coming in loud and clear. So
Lovely.
is it just me, or are you like busier, constantly busier than a one-legged man at an ass kicking?
Yeah, I like to be busy as a general rule. I have to say that right now I've got a busy day today, and we've got Lost Evenings coming up in Toronto, and that is packing out my days, shall we say? But I've got a couple of weeks off after that, so there is daylight at the end of the tunnel for me right now. But yeah, I like to be active.
But you do take vacations? You do stop at some point?
Yeah, it's funny. Like sometimes, I mean, in the last, let's say, 10 years, maybe, like we've eased off the gas on my touring schedule a little, and a lot of people don't seem to notice, and it's because I don't shout about I'm going on holiday on social media and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
and I say holiday, I'm just going home for 2 weeks.
Yeah, but I
But
mean, some people don't even do that. I mean,
yeah,
I've interviewed artists who, very almost braggingly say, I never take a holiday. I would rather kill myself than go and sit on a beach kind of thing.
yeah, that's not me. That seems slightly masochistic to me. But we in my kind of 20s and early 30s, we did a good hefty 250 shows a year without blinking.
Right.
And the thing about that was, like, I mean, it was fun to do, but like I didn't have any particular reason to stop or go home at the time. Whereas now, people are settled down, people have kids and houses and pets and that kind of thing to attend to. But also the physical side of it, there are things you can do in your 20s that you can't do in your 40s. And I do want to keep doing this in one form or another for as long as I
Uh-huh.
can. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I don't want to actually burn myself out by trying to pretend that I'm 25 for the rest of my life.
Right. Well, I won't tell you about the things you can no longer do in your 60s. So you've got a little while to enjoy yet.
Yeah.
So how are the shows going so far on this
Great,
tour?
thank you. Yeah, it's been really fun. This is our second North American stretch, I should say, on this album cycle, and our first Canadian one as
Hmm.
well. We've had our friends in Bedouin Soundclash and Bridge City Sinners out with us. The shows have been great, morale is high. We've been hitting some spots we haven't hit in a while. We've been through places like Boise and Des Moines and
Nice.
Edmonton, and sort of spots that we have been to before, but not for a while, and some bands don't ever get to. So it's always a fun vibe. The Edmonton show is one of my favorite shows we've ever played. Actually, it was such a good vibe.
Great. Well, thank you and congrats for doing that because,
Thank you.
I think you're kind of at the point now where you could do one of those, I'm playing Vancouver and I'm playing Toronto and I'm playing Montreal and maybe doing 2 nights in each and just and be done with it, as opposed to doing this whistle stop milk run kind of approach to it.
Yeah, I mean it's appealing for me as well as hopefully for the people in those towns who want to see my music.
Yeah.
I love Alberta. It's a wonderful part of the world, and it's such a privilege to travel and see the world doing what I do. I mean, of course, all the cliches hold true. I travel around the world and I mostly see dressing rooms in car parks, and hotels and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
But nevertheless, I feel very privileged to do what I do.
What is your goal when you get up there on stage now to perform, and how is it maybe different from what it was, 10 or 20 years ago when you were a younger man doing this?
I mean, I would say that the goal has remained pretty constant in the sense that, like, I'm not just comfortable with the word entertainer to describe myself. I'm actively in favor of it, and I'm aware that there are some bands who don't like the word entertainer. And personally, I
Mhm.
think that's misguided because that is what we do from a broad social point of view. Other people have real jobs, and then we swing through town and try and make them feel better about their lives for a couple of hours at the end of the week or the end of the day, at any rate. And my job is to entertain the crowd, make sure they have a good time. More than that, to equip myself as best as I can as a musician and songwriter, and to present my art the best way I can, and to leave it all out there on the stage as well. It's important to me to come off stage feeling exhausted. Like, if I'm not done at the end of a show, then I feel like I didn't try hard enough.
And is that all on you, or is it a back and forth? I mean, because obviously some audiences are less
Oh
receptive,
yeah.
maybe, or.
Well, large chunks of it are on me, and I should also say the band as well, of course,
Mm.
because we're a collective entity while we're up there. There are benchmarks we can hit regardless. But you're right, a good show is an agreement between a performer and an audience. And you could musically play the show of your life to a dead crowd, and it wouldn't be the greatest show of all time.
Yeah.
A transcendent evening requires participation by the audience.
Right, right. And how is the new material fitting in? Is that kind of a shoehorning thing, or does it take some getting used to and
Um,
trying to figure out where things belong, or is it fairly easy at this point for you?
No, there's always that kind of moment of kind of I think that a good set list is a combination of leading and following, and what I mean by that is, like,
Mm,
the following part is playing the hits, as it were, or the crowd
of course.
favorites might be a better way of putting it. But the leading part is kind of saying to people, here's a song that you might not know. It doesn't have to be everybody going bananas all the way through the show for the show to work. So
Right.
some of the time, that might involve, I quite often play deep cuts and B-sides here and there for a set. We're playing songs tonight we haven't played in a long time. But by contrast, it also that sorry, not by contrast, but that also means the new stuff as well. The new album's only been out this year, so there's a case of sort of saying to people, "Here is a new song, check it out." And that's the thing that differentiates it from previous tours as well. Is the other thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we didn't play these songs last time around. One of the
Right.
things that I'm enjoying, and I'm kind of 10 albums in, I'm getting used to this cycle now, or at least I should be. Um, songs that on the last tour were in the kind of, like, people standing still and listening kind of reaction territory, and now songs where the room lights up because they heard them maybe for the first time 2-3 years ago when we came through, and now that they've bedded down. So it's really fun playing songs of FTHC, my ninth album, now, and having the crowd go crazy because it's like, oh, the system works, like they're bedding in. So,
Yeah.
but
And I
I've
guess
really
they
enjoyed.
I guess they surprise you sometimes too, in the sense of you might pull out a new song or even an older song and expect people to react one way, and then
Oh
they
yeah,
they you know they don't, or they say, oh yeah, we like that song, but we really really love this song that you just thought was a throwaway or something.
yeah, absolutely. I think I have
Mm.
a reasonably good gauge in terms of what songs go down with which audiences, and it does have international variations to it, which
Oh
will
yeah.
depend on. But yeah, I mean, just stuff like, for example, my first album did reasonably well in an underground kind of way in the UK, but it sort of wasn't properly released in North America for a long time. So
Mm.
songs that I know will bring the house down in London, say,
Right.
less so in Edmonton, shall we say? But as you say, there are always
Yeah.
surprises. There are moments where you drop a song, and more broadly, I mean, with a new album, I mean, we finished the album, and I had a reasonably good idea of which song was going to land with the crowd, and I think I was mostly on the money with it. But there's one or two where it's like, oh, okay, fine.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize you guys are going to be like that.
With the album now out for a few months, I mean, some artists they put something out and then they go and tour it and they realize that, oh, you know what, these songs sound so much better now that we've been playing them for months and we've been able to kind of find the exact space and the exact way they
Sure.
should be presented. Is that something that happens to you, or?
It is, and it's kind of an inevitability to a degree because of
Sure.
the structure of the music industry. I mean, we made a record in 2015 called "Positive Songs, Negative People," in which the whole methodology of the album was trying to preempt that phenomenon. So
Mhm.
we rehearsed the album in sound checks and played it live for like a year and a half before we got into the studio. The idea being that by the time we got into the studio, that process of kind of bedding down in front of an audience would already have taken place. But of course, we did that. We released the album, we stored it again, and then a bunch of stuff changed long
Yeah, well,
afterwards.
which
So
is kind of the
there's
way it should be, right? It should be living, breathing art to some
Oh
degree,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
completely. And like, if I on the rare occasions, I don't sit around and listen to my own stuff. You'll be relieved to hear. But like, on the rare
Thank
occasions,
you.
if I listen back to like photos, since this is a song for my second record, which we still play every day, and if I listen to the recorded version of that, it's like, oh shit, that's really different from how we play it now because it has organically
Right.
evolved over time. I mean, with regard to new stuff, there's more like quite often there's just like a tense in a line, if you see what I mean, or a pronoun or something like that, or just a
Right.
different way of hitting a line rhythmically or something like that, which will be slightly different. And you're like, God damn it, I wish I thought of this before we recorded this. But as I say, there's not a huge amount you can do about that.
Are you still happy with the album a few months out now? In hindsight, it's it's been out, it's able to breathe, it's got its own, you've had to let go of it and put it out into the world,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how do you think of it now?
I'm still really proud of it. I mean, it's I have different flavors of album in my repertoire. There are some records where it comes out and reasonably quickly I'm like, there's some things that could have been better. And in those instances, quite often the following record is a similar beast, kind of sonically,
Hmm.
genre wise or whatever. With this one,
Like
I
a
really feel
do-over?
like,
Yeah,
yeah, kind of. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Like my
yeah.
second album was very much kind of album one Redux kind of thing. Well, not Redux, but
I got you. Yeah,
improved.
yeah,
Whereas when I finished Singing to Keep My Bones, I was like, yep, that went well. Let's do something
right.
else next time. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm really, really proud of the record. There's not much that I would change in retrospect. There's always something, of course, there is,
Sure.
because T.S. Eliot said poetry is never finished; it's only ever abandoned, and I love that.
Yes,
And I think that's
exactly.
true of most art. But so there's always a couple of things. But broadly speaking, I feel like I hit my marks with this record, and I'm really pleased with what it's done creatively and indeed kind of commercially, presentationally, however you want to put it. So I haven't been writing that much lately. I've kind of been tinkering with a few things, but the next thing might be quite different.
All right, all right. I mean, I heard, and maybe it's just me, I heard a little more stock taking this time out. A little
Yeah,
more pandemic, 40-year-old. Is that just kind of the inevitability that you're going to get when those two things are coinciding and you're sitting
yeah.
there writing?
I think that's definitely part of it. I mean, it's a funny thing. I made a record. The preceding record was mostly written and all recorded during kind of lockdown times of the
Mhm.
pandemics. And that, but I didn't really touch on the pandemic as a subject because it just seemed a bit too obvious. It seemed a bit too
Right.
close. So I hadn't had time to digest it and all that kind of thing. Undefeated is not a pandemic record by any stretch of the imagination, but there is some reflection in there. And as you know, I turned 40 during the pandemic, which was it's quite difficult to disentangle sometimes whether changes have happened in the last, let's say, 5 years of my life are because of me getting older or because the world getting turned off and on again several
Hmm.
times, and all the rest. So yeah, there is a reflective mood to the record, sure.
Yeah, but also what I found interesting about it is that you kind of don't just talk about where you've been and what you think, and as I said, take stock, but you also seem to come to a conclusion. I mean, the title, very obviously talks about, there's a lot of gratitude, a lot of, hey, I'm doing okay,
Yeah,
which is not always the case. I mean, for a lot of musicians, they use music as kind of a denial of aging,
sure.
get the hair dye and get on the tight pants and you're still 20 years old. And then there are
Yeah,
other
yeah,
artists like John Samson who has admitted that, after a certain age, being a musician can kind of feel silly and trivial and childish in a way, So
sure.
it's a tough line to walk.
It is, but then I mean, I think that I've always been attracted to writers who uh, deal with other phases of life other than the kind of the adolescent explosion, as it were.
Right.
There are bands, as you know, who, I mean, I'm not going to name any names, but there are bands who put out a new song and it's a song about high school, and it's like you guys are all in your 40s and everybody knows it. Like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Whereas, personally, whether it's Nick Cave or Loudon Wainwright or people like that, that I
Yeah.
do think that songwriting is or Leonard Cohen being the top of the tree for me.
Mhm.
And not that I consider myself in that category, incidentally. And Leonard
I
Cohen's kind of
think
like
you're
this.
fine. No, you're okay.
Well, I find that Leonard Cohen songs are like the sun. You can't look at them for too long without damaging
For
your
sure.
eyes. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
just too good. But like Loudon Wainwright's a good example of somebody who writes intelligently and movingly about things like divorce and parenthood and even there was a song on one of his more recent records called "I Remember Sex," which I thought was an incredibly brave and also witty song for a man in his 70s to put out into the world. And you know, I'm attracted to that idea that, like, I think songwriting as an art form is versatile enough to cover all of human experience. It's just that the medium of rock and roll historically has been adolescent focused, and I understand that. You know, I see the
Sure.
reasons for that. You know, rock and roll is about first kisses and staying awake all night, and you know,
Right.
driving a car fast down the road with your first girlfriend or whatever it might be. But like, it's been a while since my first kiss now. You know
I
what I
hope so,
mean? And
yeah.
yeah, you know, I think that for me, there's a sense of trying to find dignified things to write about, you know, and not and honest
Yeah.
things to write about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think it'll be. I mean, this album feels, in a way, maybe not pivotal in the sense of it's not the grandest shift, but it feels like you're kind of starting on this curve of, okay, you want to aim more towards, as you said, the Leonard Cohens, the Craig
Sure.
Finns, the Bruce
Yeah.
Springsteens, the guys who can write grown-up songs for grown-up people. It'll just be
Yeah.
interesting because you're still gonna, I presume, probably set them to this in this punk-ish world, you know?
Yeah, 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 sure. Well, I mean, definitely, like the last couple of records I made have been very much kind of a return to base, as it were, in terms
Hmm.
of looking more consciously towards punk rock as a genre, which is home turf for me, you know. And like, I had a few. A friend of mine described them as my walkabout records, where I did a kind of history folk record and I did an electronica record and all this kind of thing. And it's kind of it feels quite good to me, and like I feel quite the contrarian in me is slightly tickled by the fact that as I've entered my 40s, we've started making more quote unquote punk records. I think that's kind of fun. I think our live shows right now are as aggressive and as energetic as they've ever been, if not more so. And I think that's kind of fun because I think people are kind of waiting for me to do the pipe and slippers thing. And we haven't got there yet.
Uh-huh. Well, good. I mean, and you, I think I can't remember which song it is on the album, but you say you've returned to. Oh, it's no, thank you for the music, right? Where you say
Yes.
you're back to
Yeah.
being angry.
Yeah,
What
definitely.
what are you angry at?
Oh, lots of things. What did
What do you
Elvis
got?
Costello said? What do you got? Yeah, exactly. I think that I mean, quite specifically, that is a line, and that is a song about the fact that, like, I think you know when you're young, you're pissed off at the world, and that's fine. And then you kind of get a bit older, and you understand that people stand in different places and have different perspectives, and that it's important to try and inhabit those
Right.
perspectives to understand other people and to realize the limitations of your own view, and blah 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 blah. And but the problem with that approach is that at a certain point, it is kind of possible to argue yourself out of having any opinions about anything. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Because you get so good at seeing the other side of the argument that suddenly
Right.
you just sort of like end up not really believing in anything. And I'm not sure I got quite that far down that rabbit hole, but I got close to it, you know. And it's been kind of fun. It's been restorative in the last couple of years, actually kind of going, no, you know, the following things do piss me off, and some of that's political, and some that song specifically is aimed at certain corners of the music industry, which I have dabbled in from time to time and am no longer part of, and I'm quite happy to not be part of. But it's on a personal level as well, you know, this sort of sense of I feel like the pandemic was an interesting moment in terms of kind of winnowing out my friendship circle. I think a lot of people found that. Do you know what I mean? It was just kind of like this person is not worth my time and energy or whatever it might be.
Right. So, I mean, talking about that though, you're on tour now in the States during fever white hot pitch election cycle.
Oh yeah,
Um,
again I should say because we were over here in 2016 as well.
Yeah, so I mean, how do you navigate? And I mean, is it a thing where you have to bite your tongue to not say something, or do you feel that, an Englishman has no place really speaking about this, or what?
I think it's important for me to recognize where I stand and my perspective on things, you know. And I mean,
Mhm.
actually, as far as the states goes, I love America, and my
Sure.
experience of this country is pretty roundly positive. But I
Hmm.
understand that my experience of this country is filtered through the prism of who I meet, which is people who come to punk rock shows, you know, and that it would
Yeah.
be silly of me to imagine that I get a kind of completely representative demographic slice
Yeah.
presented to me every day.
Yeah. You're preaching
Um,
to the choir. Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a sense in which like there's the old dichotomy of like, you know, I'm an entertainer, shut up and play. Like people came here to kind of lift the weight of the world rather than to indulge in their problems further. On the one hand, versus on the other hand, the whole kind of like, hey, I grew up listening to the Clash. Like really?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
do
yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
if I want to say something, I have a platform, I want to say something. To be honest, my slight reticence about talking in politics in public in recent years is simply because I'm less convinced of my grasp of the issues now than I was when I was younger. You know,
Right.
I feel like the older I get, the more I realize that I don't fully understand everything. And something that I find very distasteful, and of course, with great ease, you can find examples of me being guilty of this, but is the musician holding forth about politics without sort of full facts. Do you know what I mean? And like the
Right.
assumption that because you're good at one thing, you're good at something else. And like an
Right.
awful lot of the time, you see musicians kind of like pounding their lecterns about politics, and it's like, shut up, man! You have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
Well,
And I
yeah,
don't.
that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, Harlan Ellison said, people are entitled to their informed opinion. Getting
Right.
up on the
Yeah.
soapbox and shouting idiot lies and idiocy and all that serves nobody.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a problem across the political spectrum, actually.
Yeah. Sure.
And I think I'm wary of being that guy. Let's say that. So I mean, to address the elephant in the room, I'm obviously hoping that Donald Trump doesn't win this election. I think he's an asshole. But
No, I'm shocked.
yeah, no, I know, shock horror. But then again, this is the other thing, is like something that
Yeah.
I don't have a huge amount of time for, is kind of like unearned grandstanding. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
it's not brave to stand on a stage at a punk show and shout "fuck Donald Trump." There's nothing brave about that at all. It's not
Sure.
confrontational. It's not interesting.
Right.
And so when you look at it from that angle, the whole kind of like, people came here to kind of ease the weight of the world thing, that becomes a more appealing approach to me.
I hear you. Talking about elephants in the room, I'm guessing the thing that is either the light at the end of the tunnel for you or the oncoming train for you is this Lost Evenings residency that you're doing in Toronto
Yeah.
in a few days now. It's kind of a unique approach for people who don't know. I mean, to me, it's kind of a Frankapalooza in the sense that you're doing all these nights in a row, and then you've
Yeah.
got other stages, but you've got speakers. Tell me what the philosophy is sort of behind the whole
Well,
thing.
I mean, it began in 2017. A lot of people were trying to push me towards doing my own festival, as in like outdoors in a field kind of vibe.
Mm,
And that's just an insane amount of logistics and indeed risk. And you have to think about toilets and fencing and things like this.
right.
But also there's a few friends of mine in the UK, the Levelers in particular, have their own festival. And it was just like, there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to be different from what they're already doing. And I play their festival all the time. And it's like, I don't want to
Mhm.
rain on their parade. But at a certain point in the career, it's not a bad idea as an artist to have a thing that you do annually that's yours. Flog and Molly have a cruise, the whole city do their weekenders, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
And then what happened in 2017, there's a band called Wolf Alice, who you may be
Mhm.
familiar with.
You
They're
bet.
old friends of mine, and they got so big on their first record that they could have done an arena show, but they didn't want to. So instead, they did 4 nights at the Forum in London, which is a 2,000 cap room, and they did 4 nights of different sports each night. And I was in the crowd with their manager watching the show one night, and he went, "It's almost like a festival, this, isn't it?" And I just looked at him and was like, "Yes, it is." And now forget that you ever said that. Um,
Yeah.
so, and there's a million bands that I want to kind of have as support, or to promote, however you want to put that. So the first
Mhm.
one, which is still pretty much the shape it has of having a second stage and having panels and discussions and stuff. First one, sort of, we put it on in London in 2017, and to everybody's surprise, it went really well and it really worked as an idea. And everyone was like, "Oh my god, wow, okay." I mean, there were teething problems, there were
Sure.
logistical issues that we didn't understand, but the idea was always to make it a portable concept. We did the second one in London just to kind of bed down the lessons that we'd learned, if you see what I mean. And then the third one went to Boston. The fourth one, that we then encountered COVID, but we did London again, then we did Berlin, then we've done Anaheim, now we're doing Toronto. Next year is going to be elsewhere again.
Mhm.
I will be announcing that on the Sunday.
Right.
But it's fun, it's sort of the circus comes to town. I mean, it is very much me fest, as it were. If I ever wonder where all the t-shirts we sell on tour go, I can tell you they go, because they all gather together at Lost Evening. So
Yeah.
but it's fun. It's a celebration. I get to play a million different songs.
Yeah.
The challenge, I mean, my band refer to it as the annual exam, because we play so many
Right.
bloody songs. But it's the one time of the year, the one show where I can't lose in terms of set list choice. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's
Right.
nothing I'm going to play that doesn't land. So it is kind of fun
Right.
to pull out all the deep cuts.
So I mean, obviously it's a lot of work. I'm guessing a lot of little minor fires to put out every day, but in the end,
Sure.
it's fun and worth it for you.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about minor fires, I spent the first half of my day today running around screaming about backdrops.
Uh-huh.
Well, in fact, more precisely, being screamed at about backdrops and being told to make up my bloody mind. But no, it is really cool. I mean, it always feels kind of there's a degree of kind of triumph and consolidation almost to it. You
Right.
kind of get to the end of it and you feel good. And this year will be the biggest one yet, which I'm excited about.
Right.
And all that kind of thing. We do kind of have an unofficial rule that no one is even allowed to say the words "Lost Evenings" for 3 months after one of them is finished.
Yeah, I can
Do you know what I
understand
mean?
that.
Just yeah, my crew are just like, no, no,
Yeah.
no, shush. I'm like,
So
I've had this idea.
are you gonna try and entice Rollins up on stage to sing a song?
I have been told that that's not on the menu.
Yeah, I know he's given up. But maybe if you start, if he's in the room and you start playing My War or Black Coffee or
Yeah,
something, you can
well,
lure
mate,
him.
I would love to. And slightly, unfortunately, from that point of view, he's performing on the acoustic night. So one of the nights
Ah.
is always me and my acoustic guitar, and I'm not sure that he's up for getting up and bellowing out an acoustic version of "Damaged" or whatever.
Well, we can only hope. We can only hope.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you are heading towards your 3,000th show.
yes.
That is insane.
I mean, it is. It's from some angles. I mean, I'm glad I kept a record as I went. And every few years we get one of these milestone shows, which is always a fun occasion to celebrate. The first time somebody asked me where and when show 3,000 was going to be was the week after show 2,000, and I was like, Jesus fucking Christ,
Fucking
dude!
yeah, I think
Like,
that's one of those, not for 3 months.
well, or indeed 5 years, maybe. Like,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, obviously from some angles, it's another show. There's no specific reason why 3,000 should be more exciting than 2,999 or three
But
thousand one.
is it really even your 3,000 show technically? Because I mean, the thing is, this kind of handcuffs you in the sense of, oh, let's say you're in wherever you're wherever you're playing tonight and you have a good show and then you go across the street to do a few songs at a pub. Well, that can't be an official
Oh
show.
well, you see, no, but I have criteria for what counts as a show.
Oh,
A show is at least 5 songs, and it has to be more people in the audience than on the stage.
okay. So as
Those
long as you play four, you're good to go.
exactly.
I see. All right. Well, that I'm sure everybody involved is glad to have a rule there. All right. I know you got other people to talk to today, so I will let you go after this. Um, Oasis reunion. Yay? Nay?
I couldn't give a toss. I mean, more specifically, I think that, and this is not so much about Oasis, about the British culture. It is difficult to describe how atavistic it was to be into any kind of alternative left of the dial music in the 1990s in the UK, because you just got the shit kicked out of you by Oasis fans. They were Nickelback times a million. They were the most overbearing, middle of the
Uh-huh.
road, aggressive mediocrity kind of thing. I mean, I don't mean that about their music necessarily. I think they've got some good songs and all the rest of it.
Sure.
And people having go at them for reuniting for the money. It's like, duh. I mean, who
Duh, yeah.
cares? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're the only people who can get paid that much to play those songs, and they should. I mean, I don't see that as a problem at all.
No.
But it's more just that, like, as a kid who got into kind of Black Flag and Butthole Surfers and Michael Azerrad's Our Band Could Be Alive and all that kind of thing, as definitely maybe was coming out, it was a
Right.
pretty unsafe time to be into alternative music because of what Oasis represented. So I think lots of, if not most of my friends disagree with this take, and are excited to get tickets, and I hope that they do, and I hope they have a wonderful time, and I hope that Oasis add to the sum total of the human happiness uh,
You
by
will not
playing
be
these
there.
shows. I'm not going to be there, but good luck to them.
All right, my friend. Listen, thanks so much for your time today, and best of
Thank
luck
you,
with the Lost Evenings and everything else you got going on. And we'll catch up with you somewhere down the road.
thank you so much, man. Nice to chat.
Bye.
Take care.